Tavia, and we are Eternal Productions back with our 6th episode of Empowering Africa. This week we discussed investment in Africa, and we're taking the conversation a bit further in the globe, so stay tuned as I introduce our guests. Our first guest is Dr. Aubrey Oliver, who is a functional medicine doctor with an ND, RBT, and MBA. Dr. Aubry Oliver has been a strong advocate for the advancement of preventative, alternative, and complementary medicine over the past 30 years. He started out with the Harlem Culture Center in the mid-80s, where he worked with inner-city youths, helping them with nutrition awareness. He also worked with New York Education Department in training teenagers in anger management skills in an after-school program that would help keep them away from crime and violence. He was one of the founders of the African Drama and production company in the early 90s that spearheaded drama productions that was used for therapy with inner city youth. Dr. Aubry Oliver was also one of the persons that was intricate in the formation of African Foundation Center, which is now a professional consultant group of the United Nations, focusing on health and awareness across Africa. Today he is a functional medicine physician who treats and lectures on preventative, regenerative, complementary and alternative health, while remains a strong advocate for youth empowerment and development. Dr. Oliver has spent the last 15 years in Jamaica developing proven therapies, nutraceuticals, and product formulations, and he has done so much more. Our second guest is Dexter Andrews, who is the CEO of Pan-African Group. The company is a non-profit focusing on oil infrastructure projects in the Kingdom Bunyoro Kitara, namely Hoima and the Albertine region, as well as hospitality and tourism projects, beginning with a 5-star safari hotel in Taro in partnership with King Oyo of Taro. Pan-Af Investment Group's ethos is to raise the standard of living for people of the area by providing well-paying jobs, as well as investing in grassroots community education and sports programs. Our third guest is Dr. Stephanie Audrey, who is the co-CEO and Chief Investment Officer of 420 Wellness Jamaica Incorporation. Dr. Audrey is also the CEO and President of Blue Diamond Group Incorporation and all its subsidiaries. Her entrepreneurial and corporate experience has covered multiple industries, including real estate finance, construction and development, consumer goods, entertainment, music, film and television, high-tech, financial services, insurance, municipalities, and more. Our final guest joining us for the second time is the brilliant mind of Mr. Tawanda Taruvinga. He received his BCom Finance degree from the University of South Africa, and from there obtained more than 18 years in finance and management accounting experience at a senior level. That is the end of the introductions. Let's head straight into the interview. Hi, Mr. Tawanda. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? How have you been?
Yes, I've been good. So you are a returning guest on the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes. So I don't know if you want to reintroduce yourself, but go ahead. Why not?
Okay. Just brief background. The Tawanda surname is Taruvinga. It's a very long surname, so I'll just put Tawanda there. It's easier. Generally, they call me Mr. T, which shortens everything. So, I'm a businessman based in Africa. I've worked my life throughout the whole of Africa, lived in different countries, Angola, Mozambique, South Africa. I've done all the nice things across Africa. I think in terms of African countries, it's a matter of which countries I haven't been to, rather than which countries I would like to go to. So I've worked at different levels, looked at different assets, looked at different business models across Africa, and that's how I found myself on this platform. So hopefully I can give a bit of insight in terms of what I've experienced personally.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And next is Dr. Oliver. How are you today? And please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Dr. Oliver, and it's funny because I did start out my journey with an EMBA in business and a minor in social sciences. And just delving into social science, I realized the need for alternative medicine. And so I went back and I studied a degree in alternative medicine. And now I practice as a functional medicine doctor with interest in investing in Africa the way things are going and just really studying in social science, people like Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King, you know, we cannot be a force in this society unless we are economically unified as a people, and we're doing very well economically. So I've always been an advocate to see Africa develop as an economical power, unite as a country, as a united state of Africa, and then they will respect us. So yes, that's what I'm about.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I definitely think unity is important. And next we have Dr. Audrey. How are you today? And please introduce yourself.
Wonderful. Well, good morning or afternoon or wherever you are, whatever time zone you're in. I'm on the West Coast, so it's early morning for me. So yeah, I'm Dr. Stephanie Audrey. I am involved with business. So my background is business. A lot of effort on, I'd say, couple of sectors. Advertising was my early career. Real estate finance and development and venture capital have been more of my later career. So I'm involved with not only assisting organizations and municipalities with looking at economic development opportunities around physical commercial real estate development, as well as assisting developing those actual companies that would occupy those spaces. So I usually take a very holistic approach to looking at what solutions are going to be most impactful, not only for domestic, but for international organizations, and have been very active with putting together alliances and facilitating business relationships that allow for partnerships and structures where you can identify needs around capital, capacity, and expanding customer market opportunities. So those are the areas that I focus on, and I've also spent time as adjunct faculty creating new ventures, developing teaching and management programs, management marketing, things of that nature. So very excited about this conversation today. I had the opportunity a couple years ago to speak for Africa Day, and that was a great opportunity to not only discuss business opportunities, but collaboration opportunities. So I expect that this opportunity will present some of those conversations as well. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much. I hope so too. And I see all of you have an extensive line of work and you still look young, so it's amazing. Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Andrews, how are you today? And please introduce yourself.
Sorry.
He's the baby of the group.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of PanAf Investment Group. We're an African company that has an MOU with the Kingdom of Bonyoro. And we also work closely with the central government of Uganda, working on infrastructure projects, namely healthcare sector, and working towards some industrial farming projects at the moment with the kingdom. Yeah, that's about it at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Andrews. Thank you all for joining me today. It's an honor to have you with us. We have officially gone beyond Africa and it's amazing. So after doing some research, I realized that I know almost nothing about investment, which is okay. But because it's not something I can learn fully simply for this interview, maybe in the future I'll take a course or get an advisor. But the basic understanding I got is that an investment can refer to any mechanism used for generating future income. And I believe this conversation will help broaden our understanding. So the first question, which is a general question, is how did you get involved in the business of investment? So I'll start with you, Mr. Tawanda.
How did I get involved? I've got a long history. I was very fortunate that after doing all the schooling work, all the academic side, I got involved in a multinational, which allowed me to travel across Africa. Multinational was operating in about 45 African countries. And I ended up being a CFO for literally 15 of the countries. that I used to head. Each country had an average 250 employees, thereabout. And through that process, I came across a lot of opportunities as I traveled from one African country to the next. And I also understood the social dynamics. So getting involved in the investment side was a very easy decision because you could see all the opportunities as you traveled from basically one country to the next. And also when you leave Africa, because there were headquarters in emerging markets, just pretty much in the UAE and in Germany, you also get a very good fuse of what is it exactly that needs to happen or that needs to be done. And you can have a clearer picture of the disparities in terms of the investment scales between all these regions. So that's how I ended up getting involved, because I could actually see the opportunities as I traveled from country to country.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope I see the opportunities as I grow older. Dr. Oliver, can you share how you got involved?
Well, basically, I started, as I said, in Harlem, as my bio stated. And one of the things that I've always thought when I first got back to Jamaica was that if we could get everyone economically viable in Jamaica, we could have less crime. That was my first focus when I got there. So I started working with inner city youths, helping them change their mindset that they can accomplish anything that they wanted. So we basically would set up programs that would help them to look into ways that they can produce something entrepreneurial. Basically, and Jamaica is mostly music and sports and so forth. But I got them to think beyond just being an artist, because everybody wanted to be an artist when I got there. Even the toughest gangster, he can rap and sing. So I said to him, look, you don't have to be an artist. Let's look at you being a producer. Let's look at you being the business owner. Let's look at you doing some, just learning about publishing. How do you get into publishing of music and knowing, keeping the accounting of these artists. So I worked with that program, interviewed a few times with the local stations there, and then bring in people who are experts on investment, because I'm still learning about the investment market. We have one of the most thriving junior stock market in the world. Right before the pandemic, Jamaica was #1 junior stock market in the world. And so there was a lot of companies coming on board from Trinidad and Tobago, rest of the Caribbean, that were buying into Jamaica's stock market, and it was just booming. Thanks to the pandemic, they have, kind of slow everything down with our economy and the investment part of our economy. But the Jamaica stock market is there. The companies that we work with, from the National Bank on down to the insurance companies, they're still there. You can still buy into the stock market there. So yes, I am an advocate now for pushing it. I mean, I remember when I first got out of college, I used to sell penny stocks. And that was the hardest thing you ever do, calling people trying to sell them stocks they never heard of and starting at a penny. So I basically evolved from that and just learning more about the blue chip companies and so forth. So I'm still in a learning process, because I switched from finance to healing. And healing is where it's at for me. But in the process, I have now become board members on companies that are on the stock market. And so the process is still a work in process.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. And Dr. Audrey?
It's interesting when I think about when I got involved in investing. I think I've been really thinking about and pretending to be an investor for as long as I can remember. At 8, it was when I was playing business and making the declarations that I was going to be an international business tycoon. By 11 and 12, I was creating actual businesses that we were operating. By 13, we had built the snack bar, running the business at the park as our summer business. And at 18, I had my first business. And by 20, I was serving on a task force for the Oakland Chamber of Commerce. I'm originally from the Bay Area, where I was on the international task force. So all of the businesses from other regions of the world that wanted to do business in Oakland, in particular with the Oakland port, would come in and present their business opportunity. And those of us on the task force would listen to those opportunities and look at how we could partner or forge alliances to help facilitate those opportunities coming forward. So it appears that from the beginning, I was interested in exploring business. I mean, as an 8-year-old, I was telling my mother that I was going to be the wealthiest woman like this international deal maker, who later I found out was a Middle Eastern. So I was thinking global at a very early age. And I think that thankfully my career has allowed that to continue.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think if a lot of children can have that mindset, would have tycoons even here in Africa. But thank
Well,
you.
that is my objective. Is really, I have this idea that if I could capture a room full of 8-year-olds, that I could slowly change the world. And I had an opportunity to run some of those plays with a room full of 8-year-olds. So I'm pretty confident that my ideals will work and stick. So I can't wait. Send them to me. If they're 8, send them to me. I got them.
Perfect. Our first initiative. And lastly, Mr. Andrews.
University. I wanted to get into business for myself. I decided that I wasn't going to work for anyone else. I was going to work for myself. And it was at that point I decided, yeah, I'm going to invest in myself. And so I think the first major investment I made was in myself. And then I had to grow from there.
Perfect. I think sometimes we're scared of investing in ourselves, but that's perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, now we're moving on to our personal questions. Well, it's not so personal, but it's directed at you. So I'll start with my first question, which is for Dr. Oliver. Your knowledge and experience is extensive. What kind of investments are you looking to bring into Africa?
So, working with Dexter and Dr. Audrey, we've been the last year or so looking to develop products from cannabis, product from nutraceuticals, and setting up industries where we can manufacture, hire a great deal of locals, and actually send out a distribution network internationally from South Africa. We've been talking to the chief, Gabriel, about utilizing some of the land that he has there. The first thing when I spoke to him last year was I sent him a plan that we were working on for Nigeria, where we're going to build a media city. And that plan for South Africa was more focusing on nutraceutical, healthy alternatives to pharmaceuticals, and basically distributing and manufacturing and setting up factory, a community of workers, cultivating the products there, cultivating the plants, because most of these nutraceutical will be from phytonutrients, which is plant-based nutrients, with CBD from cannabis, more so than even hemp, to produce some of these products. I know the chief and I spoke about some land there in his kingdom, which is close to Zimbabwe, and we're looking to cultivate at least 1,000 hectares. And already Dexter company that we've been working with out of UK, Essential, already have some growing going on in Uganda, at least 60 acres. So we have that example ready to go to bring and implement in South Africa. And also Jamaica having some of the best strains of cannabis. We'll be bringing expert growers from Jamaica and even Canada to cultivate in South Africa this project of nutraceutical. So as I said, it's not just going to be just CBD, but we will explore all the cannabinoid elements from CBN to CBA, THC, and we're going to make products for patients with all sorts of diseases, and I would say all sorts of illnesses, maladies, everything. We're going to cover the whole gamut of alternative health, and we're not here to compete with allopathic medicine, which is, mainstream medicine, pharmaceuticals, those kind of things. But we're here to be an alternative and also complement what they're doing, because we need everybody in this mix to make the world a healthier place. So definitely health will be our focus, and developing out of this health projects, we will develop communities. We will build businesses. We'll build, one of my vision for the community that the chief is from is to see a high-speed rail going from there to Johannesburg, Cape Town, so that we can have that kind of a vision going, but we will have products. We will be like we'll have companies that are producing at a large scale for international distribution.
Okay, thank you. That's an interesting approach to medicine. I think this is not a question that's on my list here, but I just want to ask, in terms of the cannabis and what it's done for people where you're from, what sicknesses has it helped with?
First thing, we see a much, I would say, decrease in certain type of cancer. I work with mainly prostate cancer, and knock on wood, most of my all of my prostate patients, once I catch them before they get into anything like chemotherapy and so forth, they're still alive as far as I know. So we'll work with the male, since prostate is one of the biggest problems among African males. We don't know why yet, but we're working on it. We know there is, I know in the US it's mainly stress related, cortisol and stuff like that. So the cannabis, once you feed the cannabinoid system, it will help to deal with, because we all have a cannabinoid system. Just like we have our nervous system, our endocrine system, which deals with the sugar and all the other elements of nutrition distribution and hormonal distribution of penicillin. We also have a lymphatic system. So we do have a cannabinoid system. So when you feed the cannabinoid system with the right CBD, you're basically, and keeping the body alkaline and oxygenated, you will fight off just about any disease. The one that we find is mostly neurological right now, because the nerve is our law of our body. It governs the body, the function of the body. And as a functional medicine doctor, that's my focus, is to keep the function of your body going. And basically the body is the one that does the work, but by filling the cannabinoid system, you'll have an aid towards working and improving your immune system to fight off just about any disease. So yes, it's good with neurological disease like epilepsy and hormonal disease, which a lot of people don't realize, contribute to cancer when your hormone is off, like your adrenal glands and so forth. So it works in keeping much more preventive. But once you get to the stage that if you do have tumors and so forth, it helps to shrink tumors. If you're epileptic, it will help control and normalize the nerves that trigger off your epilepsy.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very interesting. I'm learning every day. Okay, next question is Mr. Andrews. As the CEO of Pan African Group,
yeah,
What role have you played in investing in Africa? Because I saw your company has dealt with quite a few
Yeah.
African countries.
Yeah, so we've brought in a lot of investment. We've partnered with other UK companies, now inviting them into Africa. So we look for opportunities in Africa where UK companies could fit well in, and then presented those opportunities to those companies and then invited them to come over. Because a lot of people will come over, but they don't see the opportunities. Obviously, they're not there. So as a middle ground company, as a link company between the Uganda and the UK and Europe, we do just that, just look for opportunities where we can invite. And we also present projects that are fully made. For example, if there's an opportunity for 5,000 housing development, we will now prepare that land, potentially get the planning in place, and then present that to somebody to step in and get that done. So there are a lot of opportunities in Africa, but as I just said, a lot of the big companies, they will not go and look for them. So, but we can bring them and we can do that. And also, as far as what Dr. Aubrey was just saying, to do with the growing and the pharmaceuticals, and obviously cannabis is going to be really big. It already is big, but as legislations change, more and more countries are going to start seeing the revenue is very large. So this is something that we should get into as early as possible, because big pharma will eventually step over into cannabis. And once they do that, well then, we know there won't be room for even a medium-sized company when you're going up against somebody who's Worcester's billions and trillions. So I think the time is now for us to stake our claim on that.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And what types of investments are available to the average person?
It depends on the appetite for risk. I would say the safest investment for somebody who's not adverse to risk would be land. No, land is cheap and land can always be profitable. Yes, I would say start with land and then go from there. Anything else, it starts to get complicated. You're buying cars or businesses to sell stock and all that. Takes a lot of work. I think land. Safest bet, I always say to people, buy land. They're not making any more of it. Buy.
That is 100% true. Thank you so much, Mr. Andrews. And next is Dr. Audrey. I see that you're the CEO, co-CEO and Chief Investment Officer of the company 420 Wellness Jamaica Incorporation, with its subsidiaries as well. So in terms of investment, I've seen a lot about how it's crucial to be diversified. What does this mean and why?
So diversification is important, meaning that if you have an opportunity to vertically integrate some of the elements of your business, then you are able to control not only your value chain, but your supply chain. So when we looked at 420 Wellness, we realized that there was a huge opportunity around cannabis or ganja, depending upon which region of the world. But more importantly, with Dr. Oliver's background in the medicinal applications of those crops, that became a valuable perspective of how you're using these products to not only create the nutraceuticals, the various treatments that you're going to offer patients, but more importantly, being able to take patients from a complete state and to bring them forward through wellness. And at the same time, being able to provide those environments where people come for training, learning, healing, and all of those things. So around the 420 Wellness business plan is a combination of wellness centers, wellness spas, holistic hospitals, as well as all of the treatments. So the products, the treatments, as well as the nutritional products. You know, in Jamaica, we have the access to amazing farmers that grow natural and organic crops, which have medicinal qualities and properties. So our belief is once we've treated a patient, we can send them home with a subscription so that they can continue to receive not only those products, but those nutrients to maintain their health. as well as they could participate in business training programs, because not only will we have programs, we will invite other speakers and trainers to host programs at our facilities. And therefore, to me, I say that you have two things accomplished: your health and your wealth, and one stop. So that's really the big play behind the organization.
Okay, thank you so much. And one more thing. Okay, so Dr. Oliver was speaking about this with your approach to investing into Africa on cannabis. So do you see a gap for the medicinal cannabis business within the African market? And what challenges do you think you'll face?
At this point, I think, sure, it's new. It's still an evolving sector. And whenever something is new and entering a region, then there's both the opportunity as it relates to the commercial opportunity, but then there's also the infrastructure and, how is it going to be governed, managed, the regulatory requirements, and what does that new industry mean and represent within the particular region. So because there's a certain amount of unknowns, then there may be some reluctance. Certainly there are different images and thoughts that have to be overcome in some of these regions. But the great news is that other markets have taken the chance and have gone forward to develop these sectors. And so we have now the ability to not only benchmark from successful implementations, but also to learn from those that maybe didn't go as well as planned. So we can look at some of the best practices and then come into the region with that knowing and be able to, I think, help to develop a sector that will really make sense. And also bring a lot of economic opportunities into those regions of the world.
No, definitely. I know my African brothers and sisters, sometimes with something new like this, we might be like, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Audrey. Next is Mr. Tawanda. So I wanted you to be last so that you can, hear from all the others and sort of talk about Africa. So with your knowledge and on business and investment and the fact that you are well-traveled, what are the key areas of opportunity to capitalize on for Africa's development?
Well, let me start by saying I'm extremely excited, and with what I've heard from Dr. Oliver, from Dexter, because the whole pharmaceutical aspect, the whole medicinal aspect in Africa, I think it's a huge area for potential growth, and the fusion that comes out of that in terms of us looking at the full properties of medicinal sort of offerings that are already naturally in Africa. All right, most of them just have not gone to the lab, to be tested and to go through all the stereotype kind of channels so that they become acceptable, but they have been in place. Okay, for a long period of time. Like in Zimbabwe right now, there's a plant that they actually, taking, all right, to circumvent a whole lot of things. And all of a sudden, people are scurrying and trying to figure out, what are the real medicinal properties of this, but it's already being used. And so the idea of, structuring things in a way that you can actually produce. All right, I'm quite happy with the cannabis project, because I've looked at a couple of them in Zimbabwe, and I've always spoken to the chief at length. We were doing something out of Mozambique some 2 or 3 years ago. We were converting about 10,000 hectares a year, all right? But this was just from fresh produce that we're then exporting into Europe, all right? And along the line, you realize that there is huge potential in terms of the benefication that you can actually do, you can actually bring in terms of in terms of all these properties. So this natural medicine, I think it's a huge area. And one of the things from all this the stories that we have done right now, we're in the process of over the next week or two to actually launch an airline, all right, of which one of the major things that we're focusing on is the capacity to to move cargo around within Africa. So I'm quite happy that Dexter, like for example, Dexter is in Uganda. He's got a huge market elsewhere. If we can do that with other African countries, all right, we need to get to that stage where we're not transiting through, maybe through London to get to France and things like that. Or you want to put something in Morocco, in Nigeria, you have to go through somewhere else. If we can do it directly, provide the capacity, meaning where we grow and where we sort of like manufacture does not necessarily have to be in the same location. So we can actually get the best value in terms of what exactly is each country offering. Because Africa is diverse, all right? And one of the natural complexities that people point at is that because of the diversity, the legislations, the laws, they vary from country to country. So if we can find a way of actually utilizing whatever law we find in whatever country and restrict the levels of investment to that specific aspect, you find like cannabis in Zimbabwe right now, for example, there is actually special legislation. They're actually looking for people to actually get it in it right now. But that's stage one. But in terms of the rest of the evolution of the product itself, post the growing, they're very little takers in terms of setting up infrastructure. They're only supposed to manufacture to a certain extent, all right, before they're shipped elsewhere, all right, to be completed. And when you have expertise like Dr. Oliver, you can be around and say, Doc, what do I need to do, all right, to make this happen? I liked what Dexter said in terms of land being there. There's a lot of urbanization that's taking place. We're dealing with new demands even from sort of a natural economic perspective, and that is what is providing the various opportunities. The level of imports into Africa right now, it's actually shocking, but most of the stuff is here. I mean, I did highlight on one of my previous programs that we had a natural drink that normally most of your subsistence farmers take when they go to the field. They're in the sun, they're there the whole day. But it's a very high value energy drink, all right, which nobody actually went through the process of putting a patent on it. Guess what has happened? It ended up being patented in the United States because somebody took it through to the lab. They made a plan, all right, and they patented it. So now for you to actually be able to export that particular product from Africa into the US, you don't have to pay royalties. So I really see huge opportunities in terms of what has been discussed. I understand agriculture quite a bit. My background is usually logistics, but the financial aspect of it. So I'm really fascinated in terms of what could happen where availability of land in Africa, huge, all right? If you take time to actually present a lot of these models, you'll be amazed at what you can get. Like I said, I had the opportunity to operate in Mozambique for about 2 years. I operated in Angola for about 5 years. And I think it was Dexter who then mentioned that, you have to be there to understand what is going on the ground, which is the key thing. And it's actually understanding not to respond, but understanding in order to develop, okay, the mindset that will be prevalent on the ground and reconciling it back to what you want to achieve. And that aspect usually works because my travels actually taught me that, if you go in there, even if you know what you're talking about, but if you're going to try and override everybody else without actually understanding what exactly are they aspiring to, you'll get stuck. But the opportunities on the ground are immense. Some of the countries I've mentioned, people say it's difficult. Like I mentioned to you before, I didn't speak a word of Portuguese, but because I lived and worked in Mozambique, I lived and worked in Angola, I spoke Portuguese because that's the way I could actually, the best model of me communicating what I knew. So the projects and the mindset from what I've just said from the panelists, I think it's exciting. And hence I would say, listen, we went through as far as, getting an airline just to basically firm up all these dynamic ideas, because one of the biggest challenges you find in Africa is distributing, the cost of distribution of your products. It can be astronomical. Hence, you find that your eventual price, your price tag, can be huge. All right, something that maybe you can get in Europe for 26 US cents, you end up buying it for $7, $8 US. Okay, because once you put in the logistics of transporting these goods and services, it's a bit of a challenge. So we thought, listen, let's get in, let's do this. We've managed to pretty much secure close to about 5,000 hectares in Zimbabwe. Once again, looking at specific line of products that you can grow. And when you go back to natural medicines, there's a lot of growing that needs to be done specifically to feed through to your whole manufacturing process, because it's pointless setting up a plant without the throughput. So your farming side has to be pretty much online. Whatever you can't find from the communal sort of farming setup, you have to go a bit commercial so that you can have those two things balancing out. And at the same time, you're also just really upgrading the communities that you normally be operating in. So I'm quite fascinated, because plans to accommodate such mindsets like what I'm getting off the panel are actually there. They have been looked in. So I'm quite fascinated, because plans to accommodate such mindsets like what I'm getting off the panel are actually there. They have been looked into. So sometimes just then a question of just reconciling the different bits and pieces so that we can get going.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tawanda. And Dr. Oliver, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to second what he said about the airline, because we just recently had a launch in December, airline from I think it's called, I forgot the name. Is it Peace or something? Coming out of Nigeria to Jamaica, okay. The first transatlantic airline, trip, and it was it was done in December. The Jamaica government and the Nigerian government were there, and we need to see more of this, because as you said, I thought it was for years. I'm like, why do we need to go through Europe? Jamaica's right down here close to South Africa. We're right down at the bottom of the Caribbean, and if you look, you probably can see South Africa. Why we need to fly all the way to London, Germany, and those places to go down back to South Africa? It never made any sense to me. So yes, those airlines are like 100% necessary for commerce and business opportunity to go forward. And yes, we would love that airline to be to also come to Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean, like Barbados and Trinidad. This is such a huge market. And thanks to the Nigerian Nollywood, we're getting a lot of interest of people. It's just great to be in Jamaica and people are like, oh, I want to go to Africa. I want to visit Africa, just because they love the movies. And that's exactly how the United States have been selling themselves over the last 100 years, through their movies, through their cultural, they're the largest culture. And the only reason why they're the largest culture is because they sell more movies and music than anybody else. So let's get let's get our people on board so that they can get to these countries that they've been watching now recently. Fantastic. In the movies. And I think the airline is perfect. It's what we need. And we need to connect Jamaica and those places with your airline.
And also what I wanted to add was, what I found is when it comes to packaging, we have the produce, we definitely have the produce, but I've been dealing with some large chain stores over here in the UK, in London, etc. And our packaging in Africa needs to be up to the standards that the West is demanding. Because usually that's their get out of jail clause. That's what they will always say to you. Oh no, we can't accept your African produce because your packaging isn't up to standard. Yeah, and they continually will say that. They won't say we'll package it for you. They just say we can't get. But they'll buy the raw material so they can package it themselves. Because if they buy the raw material, they buy it at next to nothing, package it themselves, mark it up. Now we need to be the ones to mark up our own produce, even if that means having a factory. One company can have a factory. You can have a farm in Africa, and then you have a factory in Germany, in London, or wherever. Maybe not London because the rent's higher. You have one in UK. And then you ship to yourself, package, and then it gets an EU barcode or an American barcode. And that's how we can infiltrate the stuff into the countries much easier. Because I'm finding now from Uganda, we're doing some green peppers. Now, they're looking for reasons continually at the customs to tell us why they can't come in, and that they need to burn them and this and that to know to cost you money, to prevent us from doing this. So they don't want us to be able to give farmers jobs and all that so easily. So we need to take these things into consideration. There's a lot of opposition that won't come in the open, but it's there, such as these customs.
No, I completely concur. Just to add on to what Dex is saying, because this is reality. I know we had to ship packaging for the major chains, major supermarkets in the UK, because they literally bought off growing plans in Mozambique. So what they'll do is you have to ship packaging out of the UK into Mozambique,
and then send it back,
and then send it back. So you find the cost of airlifting that packaging per kilo in there and then taking it out, you find that the competitiveness of the products becomes very, very dodgy. And there'll be little things like, what sort of paint are you using? What is this and that? So yes, having a factory somewhere that accommodates this, because I think all fresh produce, you correct me if I'm wrong, Dexter, but I think all fresh produce that's coming out of Africa right now is actually subject to this frivolous sort of packaging.
All of it, and they're looking for reason, and they charge you £2,000 to burn your stuff. They charge you to burn your stuff.
Because there's one outfit.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So we know they're against us because they don't want us to grow. They know we're rich in land. As soon as we make that click and start growing ourselves, we can feed the whole world just with the land in Africa alone. So they want to control us. So we need to prepare for that by having the packaging they need in the country. Then definitely.
Absolutely.
What an enriching conversation. Thank you so much. I'm learning, I'm just absorbing. Thank you. Okay, so as we are on the topic of empowering Africa and seeing Africa grow and develop is the goal. What advice do you have for people, private or companies who would like to invest into Africa? So where can they start? Yeah, so where can they invest in Africa and how do they get started? So I'll just start with Dr. Oliver. You can start.
Well, me not really being there and being an expert, but just going back to the great late Marcus Garvey, let's invest into our people first. Let's start with the education, the real education of our people. Let's get this European factory assembly line education out of our countries. Let's get back to educating the people the way the griots used to do it. The stories of our people, the history of our people. We need to really, you cannot be teaching our people European history and all that garbage. We don't need that in Africa. We don't need to be brainwashing our people anymore. We don't need any more white Jesus in our country, in our Africa to manipulate the minds of the people. We don't need any white hands of surgery and surgery. I mean, Dexter was telling me a story about one of the investors from London that wants to invest in Uganda as far as, being with the government. He's one of the lords, the so-called lords that King James changed up the Bible about. And they basically was telling the people of Uganda that it's best to have white surgeons in their hospitals because the Africans trust white hands better. I've never heard such foolishness in my life. And this is coming from a government official to government people in this modern time. So that brainwashing needs to stop. That's the first investment we need to do, is invest in educating the people. And I think Dr. Audrey and myself, that's what we want to do. We want to come over and do some really alternative education of how the people need to think. Their mindsets need to change. I love the economic freedom fighters. I think I want to support them 100%. And I love what he says recently about not getting vaccines from Europe. Why do we need vaccines from Europe? The vaccines that we know that they give in the black communities here is different from the vaccine that they give in the white communities. It's a fact. It's a proven fact. There's scientists, white scientists, who comes on the air on their deathbed because now they're getting old and they're guilty, and saying that they were orchestrating vaccines to black kids that give them autism and give them all kinds of slowness in their education. While they were given the vaccine they were given to the white kids were not affecting them in their education, but the black kids were being affected. And so that they were doing the same thing in South Africa. In South Africa, they're telling you that they're giving you something to help your health, birth control or whatever, when they were giving HIV, injecting that in the people, wiping out a whole generation. Nobody's talking about these things. So we need to educate our people. That's the first investment I would put into Africa, is to educate them, especially about cannabis. These people, they still have that white mentality. The lies that the white people told us about cannabis. In Jamaica, the same thing. You have, that elite class in Jamaica looking down on cannabis because they're brainwashed. When the United States is lying to the rest of the world about, cannabis is, ganja will make you mad and this and that, when they have the patents the whole time, the last 7,500 years, they're patenting cannabis and giving it to who they want to give it to for health purposes. What kind of hypocrisy and lies? People need to know this. And I think the first thing I would invest in Africa when I get there is educating mindsets. Changing mindsets is going to be the first investment I'll put my money into.
Definitely. We were talking about education last week and how important it is. Thank you so much, Dr. Oliver. Dr. Audrey, you can share next.
Well, really just a continuation of what Dr. Oliver said, but my perspective being that one of the things that I did with raising my son at a very early age was planting in his mind that it's all a business. And so when you understand the world through the lens of it's all a business, so pick one, pick one that you love, pick one that you can improve upon, pick one that you can expand, that you can contribute to. So I think that when people have a mindset that you have the ability to create your own possibility, and you're looking at relationships from the standpoint of these are going to be relationships of people that I'm going to do business with, people who are possibly going to work for me, work with me, collaborate with me, then it changes the mindset. Instead of sitting in a classroom, if you will, being taught about particular topics, you're really forging relationships. You're developing leadership, team building skills. You're developing communication skills. You're developing the ability to evaluate and analyze business concepts and ideas from a practical standpoint, because all ideas have a time and then have the market demand at that particular time. So just that understanding of how to critically think of what are the problems and what are the potential opportunities that exist in the market at any given point. Because when we look historically, especially when I look at companies out of the US, you have companies that have created their entire product portfolio to solve the lifestyle demands of people. And so when I think of companies like the Procter & Gamble's of the US, their product portfolio will take care of your complete household needs, from a baby to now the boomers, with Depends. So they have a portfolio of product for you along your complete life cycle of needs and demands. And so when we think about that, those are opportunities as well. And I believe that when you create those opportunities, then you have more control over your economic outcomes. So I'm an advocate for creating and having an ownership stake in business, and that definitely requires a mindset.
Definitely. So what I'm learning is we need to start from young. Thank you so much, Dr. Audrey. And Mr. Andrews, you can share.
Yeah, I think the African companies, we need to utilize the internet more. 99% of people in Africa, we have smartphones now. So they need to utilize e-commerce. We're still very hand-to-hand at the moment, the way we think and do business. And we need to step that up now into 2021. You can make more money online as a trader than you're ever going to do standing the way you're standing. So we need to start thinking like that. That's why I would advise them. That's why I'm advising. let's get some apps going. Let's get some e-commerce going.
No, definitely. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, education is a big factor here in Africa, and I hope we can improve. And lastly, Mr. Tawanda.
I think Africans need to start taking responsibility for the development of Africa. And this means that we have to go into areas that, we never even have imagined. There was a talk of things like getting your vaccines out of Europe. You'll be shocked at the amount of, African doctors that are actually working in Europe, African doctors that are actually on the continent. And, you just start wondering what exactly is it that we're not doing, because definitely the skill sets are there and they need to be utilized. And that story is pretty much the same across any industry. Point to any industry, you find that you have exactly the same sort of idea. I know sometimes the issues of funding and everything else, but Africans need to take responsibility rather than make a lot of excuses in terms of what they can get into. If you look at the growth rate right now in Africa, if you're averaging, GDP growth rate across Africa, averaged out, 6%, 6.5%, you're really right up there. You're chasing your Middle Eastern countries, which are maybe sitting slowly on 7. And it means there's growth, and we need to take advantage of that, because if we don't, somebody else is going to fill in the space, and we end up having to deal with individual interest outside Africa, ring-fencing their interest in terms of making sure certain aspects of their product, even if the product is a made in Africa, they'll have the finishing being done somewhere. And I think it's quite crucial. I think any industry right now, as far as Africa is concerned, is pretty open. The land is there, the mining rights, the products out of mining, which are making all these interesting things that you've got, whatever it is, whether it's a cell phone, whether it's these things, most of the key elements are coming out of Africa. But guess what? That beneficiation of the process is not happening in Africa. It's just the stuff that's actually going out, and nothing whatsoever stops us from doing the beneficiation in Africa, or even completing some of these products in Africa, because the know-how is actually there. Why am I saying that? Because the African skills, you'll pick them up. It doesn't matter which part of the world you go into. There are Africans that are doing great things, but they're actually a bit hamstrung because their ability to be able to sort of chain these things back into Africa somehow is mitigated, and that's what we need to sort out. And it has to be, I think, an African story. Economies are growing. Countries are booming. New minerals are actually coming up. I operate out of Zimbabwe. There is no mineral that you can tell me that you don't get out of Zimbabwe. You pointed, I'll tell you that it's actually in this country somewhere. But in terms of the whole beneficiation process, there's a huge gap. And if African brothers and sisters can actually, use their capacity elsewhere, back into Zimbabwe, it works. I'm quite happy when Dr. Oliver says coming from Jamaica into Nigeria, into Lagos. We're looking at doing Zimbabwe into Lagos. So for once, I can actually go to Jamaica via Lagos. So those stories and such channels have to come into play, and we have to tell that story. And people need to be confident enough to start producing in Africa and be confident that the distribution is going to happen. But the education is a key part. I think I mentioned it before, that there's a lot of knowledge, but there is really a lack of wisdom in terms of what is the bigger picture when it comes to the African story 10, 20 years down from now.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for all the wise words. We have come to the end of the interview. So now, if you have any last words, you can share. Dr. Oliver.
Well, as the astute businessman is saying, that Africa does have the knowledge. They do have the science. An African child would leave from Ghana or Nigeria and go to the UK and US and does excellent in sciences. And so there's no excuse for us not to be developing and manufacturing the products in Africa and sending them to the rest of the world. It's just the mindset. The mindset, they have disunified us for one. They have cut up our borders based on their European mentality. And we need to change all of that. We need to get rid of borders. I mean, I cannot believe that certain countries cannot just fly normally from one country to the next. They have to go back to Europe to get back to another country. That didn't make no sense to me. When in the United States, you can get on a plane and go anywhere in the United States. Africa has to unite itself, and it starts with the mind of the people. I don't care how much languages you have over there, because Europe has a lot of languages also. So, but they're united. They have an EU. So Africa, there's no excuse with the language anymore. Let's now unite the people. It's our spirit that we want to unite. It's our mentality that we want to unite. And that will change the world. And Africa is the youngest population right now in the world. So we will be the force to deal with in the future. China is claiming that they're ready to take the New World Order. I don't want to give them the word that I really want to use, the F word about that, but I'm saying it's Africa that's going to be leading the New World Order. And the New World Order is not about controlling people's mind anymore, like what the Europeans have been doing for centuries. The New World Order is about advancing our people economically.
Thank you so much. African Airlines, here we come. And Dr. Audrey.
No, I think it's just about, it's an opportunity. We say the time has come. You have a collective awareness. I think that the global pandemic has gifted several of us with plenty of opportunities. It created a pause in what you thought you were doing. And for those who needed that pause to sort of get off of the race of solving the day-to-day responsibilities, it gave an opportunity to kind of reflect and think about if what you're doing is really the right thing to do at the right time, or if there are additional opportunities. And I know that really was part of how I identified some new opportunities, was having the space to reflect, to explore, and also being able to find information and others who could provide information to help enrich those potential business plans, because you do need a team. It's easier to go into building relationships wherever you're building relationships, whether I'm doing a development that's in another city or another state or another country. It's important to have relationships with the locals, because you need to understand what unique circumstances and opportunities exist in those local markets, and then being able to see where you can add value or help to fill whatever gaps exist, because that then can create opportunities. So I think that the conversation we're having, I think that the work that we've begun and the work that many of us have already been doing, I think that it's just come to a point where it's all met a perfect time, where there's a world awareness, where I'd say, speaking from a perspective of America, Black Americans are waking up and realizing through various social issues that some of the information, some of the education is flawed. And so the better way to educate yourself is to get out and explore the world with your eyes open, and you'll find opportunities. You'll find opportunities that can benefit yourself, but more importantly, you'll find ways that you can benefit others. And that really is where the gifts lie.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Audrey. And Mr. Andrews?
We as Africans, we have to be responsible for saving ourselves. No one's going to save us, and no one should save us, because if they do, then we're indebted to them, and then you haven't saved us at all. So we have to save ourselves. Just like what Dr. Aubrey was saying, one order is the only way. Garvey gave us a plan 100 years ago. It's relevant today. So that's it.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And lastly, Mr. Tawanda.
Look, Africa as a continent right now pretty much has got everything going for it, whether it's the whole age thing, whether it's the whole urbanization thing, whether it's the growth and the resources. Everything is going in Africa's direction right now. And whether people like it or not right now, Europe and anywhere else, they rely on Africa, and Africa is going to squeeze everybody the same way Africa was squeezed out. But that is going to happen. And us as Africans, we need to really start playing hardball in terms of what are we doing with who and for what reason. And if it turns out that you need something from us, you must pay for it. And there really shouldn't be any sort of messing around. And I like what Dr. Audrey said, that, if you looked at this whole pandemic, you're just learning that right now that when this vaccine was being rolled out, they were playing hardball with their vaccines, okay? Africa just didn't wake up and say, oh, by the way, we're just going to give you these vaccines. No, everyone is playing hardball. So at the end of the day, if Africa is not responsible, we go back begging again. But a lot of the stuff that we're also doing needs to follow the same protocol. If it's ours, you're going to pay for it, and we'll make sure that, it's an Africa first kind of thing. Let's have Africa first, and everybody else just has to pay Africa, I think, a fair price. But it goes back to, let's really have the wisdom to value what we have right now, because nobody else has it except Africa.
And real quick on the vaccine, I think because the original vaccine idea came from Africa, they're the ones who taught the Western world how to use the pathogens of a virus or something and make a medicine that will fight off that same virus. That is what a lot of the African countries need to explore, and rather than taking on some fake mRNA type of treatment, which is like saying, let's give you chemotherapy before you get cancer vaccine that they're pushing out now. We don't need that. We need to now go back and explore our own education system and our own technology and make our own vaccines that will work for Africans. If we take on these European experimental mRNA garbage that they're putting out there, we are going to hurt our people even more, because it's not for us. It's not for our DNA. It's not for our blood type. And it's definitely not for our race.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It was amazing having you all join me today. I've learned a lot, and I hope that we use everything that we learned today and actually implement it. So thank you, and have a good day further.
You're welcome.
Again. Thanks, everybody.
That was really an enlightening conversation about investment, and my main takeaway is that we need to invest in ourselves as Africans. We need to invest time into our education systems and make sure that what we're teaching our future generation is beneficial for them. We need to invest in maintaining and learning how to grow land. We need to invest in learning about e-commerce. Everything is about education and learning and training. And lastly, we need Africa to benefit from Africa. I really hope you enjoyed this interview and that you learned something today, and I hope that it was beneficial for you and that we truly do grow Africa and empower ourselves. So if you enjoyed this video, please do like this and subscribe to our channel. It's free for you and we would so appreciate it. And if you have any questions or comments, leave it down below and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. This is Empowering Africa with Eternal Productions, and that's it from me, Hoshin Taviela. Hope you enjoyed and be blessed.